Hello students, let's discuss the next question. This is from 2024. Who was the provisional president of the Constituent Assembly before Dr. Rajendra Prasad took over? Generally, if you get a direct question, who was the president of Constituent Assembly, everyone knows that it is Rajendra Prasad. That would have been a very easy answer. But here the question is asking about who was the provisional president even before Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of Constituent Assembly. So here you need to understand the context. When the Constituent Assembly met, on the inaugural day, say even before the elections for different committees and the president post and the vice president post took place, somebody had to preside over the session. So for that, who was that person who was appointed or selected as the provisional president? That is the crux of the question. We'll look at the options. See, Rajgopalachari. We know that Rajgopalachari was the first Indian who was the Governor General of India, and he was also the last Indian to be the Governor General of India. So definitely he was not the provisional president or the president of the Constituent Assembly. And B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee. He had nothing to do with the president or the provisional president. T.T. Krishnamachari. T.T. Krishnamachari was one of the members of the drafting committee which B.R. Ambedkar presided as the chairman. Here you should not confuse with the names. There is one more person called V.T. Krishnamachari. So V.T. Krishnamachari was one of the vice presidents of the Constituent Assembly, and T.T. Krishnamachari was one of the members of drafting committees. And finally, Sachidananda Sinha. Dr. Sinha was the provisional president of the Constituent Assembly. Based on the French tradition, where in their assembly, they used to select the eldermost person as the person to preside over the session. So following the same convention, and even use logic, when there are no elections and you had to select somebody to preside over the session, what would we do? Based on our culture, we would select the eldest most person to preside over the session because we think that the elder person has the most wisdom. So similarly, based on the French tradition, Sachidananda Sinha, who was the eldest member of the house then, he was selected to preside over the Constituent Assembly. And later on, when the elections took place for the post of president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad took over as the president. So Sachidananda Sinha is the correct answer. Let's now go into the in-depth explanation and how the questions could be framed from the concept in different ways, and we'll learn the details of those. The Constituent Assembly was formed on the July 6th, 1946. Finally, when the Assembly came together for the inaugural meeting, it was on December 9, 1946. You might get a factual question about the inaugural meeting or the date of this assembly. So the milestones of the Constituent Assembly, the dates are important. You need to understand the chronology at least. And based on the French tradition, like we discussed, the eldest member, who was Sachidananda Sinha, he was elected as the interim president until a president was elected. So finally, after a few days, on December 11th, 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of the assembly. Now these days UPSC has a habit of picking up the niche personalities and personalities not so famous and asking questions from them. Now because Sachidananda Sinha is there as one of the options in this question, we need to go into more details about him. There could be a related questions in the future. And if you look at the track history of this person, you will understand that he was actually one of the people who was well qualified for the post, because look at his track record. He was member of the Imperial Legislative Council. Then even before that, he was the deputy president of the Central Legislative Assembly in 1921. And he also held the office of president of Orissa's Legislative Council and Bihar's Legislative Council. He also served as a member in the Bihar Legislative Assembly. And finally, Sinha was elected to the Constituent Assembly from Bihar on a Congress ticket. So this person hails from Bihar. Now coming to the other aspects which could be asked, that is the important events of the Constituent Assembly, You need to know the chronology of these dates. The first sitting happened on 9th December 1946, and after 2 days, when the elections took place, finally Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president, and there were 2 vice presidents. You can expect a question on this in future. H.C. Mukherjee and V.T. Krishnamachari were the vice presidents of the Constituent Assembly, and B.N. Rao was selected as the constitutional legal advisor. I'll repeat again, don't confuse V.T. Krishnamachari with T.T. Krishnamachari. Both of them were from Tamil Nadu, but T.T. Krishnamachari, he was a member of the drafting committee, whereas this V.T. Krishnamachari, he was from Tamil Nadu, but later on he worked in the state of Jaipur, and later on he came to the Constituent Assembly from the Jaipur state, the princely Jaipur state. So both of them are different, T.T. Krishnamachari and V.T. Krishnamachari. And if we go to the other milestone events, in July 1947, on the 22nd, we adopted the national flag. Finally, on 22nd November 1949, the constitution was adopted, and just few days before the constitution came into force, we adopted the national song and anthem in the Constituent Assembly. So coming back to the question, who was the provisional president of the Constituent Assembly before Dr. Rajendra Prasad took over? It was Sachidananda Sinha, because he was the eldest member, and following the tradition, they chose the eldest member to preside over the interim session. Thank you.